I first visited Nablus in 2009. Nablus is located 60 kilometers north of Jerusalem in Palestine. Here you have an overview of the old city. It was Ramadan, and after a series of coincidences, I found myself sitting on the sofa on your right in the house of a woman called Fatima, and we had a long coffee. Fatima and I were both born in 1975. Surely our path of life were pretty different. She has been an activist since she remembers herself, and I guess that while I was playing Pac-Man, she was already throwing stones during the first Intifada. That night, sitting on the sofa, we spoke mainly about the situation of women in the old city of Nablus, how they were coping with post-traumatic stress, poverty, and a very conservative environment. Fatima shared with me a dream she had since many years, and that was to create a place for women to start living. That night I crashed at her place, and I spent a few more days with her and her husband and 2 kids, and that I had the beautiful opportunity to experience one of the most loving traces of the Palestinian community, which is hospitality. And that made me think. And one morning I remember sharing with Fatima a thought: why don't we make a cookery school? She looked at me and she told me, it's a beautiful idea. Just recently she said, Bea, I thought you were completely crazy. It was time for me to go back to Italy, and I went back with a promise that I would return the year after. And so I did. I went back to Nablus and I literally moved into Fatima's house. I got on board of this project a dear friend and colleague, Cristiana Bottigella, cultural manager based in London, and this was the beginning of Beit al-Karama. Beit al-Karama means house of dignity. We wanted to create a place where women would feel dignified locally and internationally. A long period of doing nothing started. I guess around 9 months, time of a pregnancy, where I basically just hanged around with Fatima in community meetings, neighbors meeting, had a lot of coffee, a lot of nargile. But this time was essential to understand the place, and also to understand the different working habits that we all have. Where I desperately need an internet connection to do my networking, Fatima, she just walked down in the market and she speaks with the right woman. And also to understand that there are language issues. I remember sitting for almost a week on the same sofa you saw before, that we used to call our space shuttle, to try to work out a budget for an application for a foundation. When Fatima looks at me very seriously and says, Bea, I know what a budget is, but what the hell is an application and a foundation? After this 9 months of investigation and being there, we actually got on working. 2011 and 12, we raised around 45,000 euros between fundraising dinners, small grants, small donations, all money with very little strings attached because we wanted to keep our independence. And as money came in, gradually we started to rehabilitate a building in the heart of the old city, starting from the kitchen, then moving on to a multifunctional room, and finally our beauty salon. We were using only local forces as we wanted the money to stay in the community. But also we wanted the wives of the carpenters to start to join us. And we wanted the place to be beautiful because we wanted women to fall in love for it. In 2012, we associated with Slow Food, becoming the first slow food center in Palestine. And today we employ full-time 5 women. We have flexible jobs for 20, 30 women. We have a cookery class every week. Every second week we have a large group coming to take lunch and our culinary tours in the old city. We organize cultural, educational and social activities for women and children of the old city, with a turnover of about 50 people every week joining our activities. Our running cost for a year is 12,000 euros. This is what the director of the Italian corporation in Palestine earns in 2 months. When Fatima told me that the cookery school was a crazy idea, what she actually meant was, how can I justify to a community still under occupation that we're making a cookery school? To then understand that food was a mean of cultural resistance and of change. We asked women to apply their skills to then realize that they are actually cultural agents, and they could meet the other, the foreigner, on an equal ground in the kitchen. A lot of personal transformations also occurred. If I think of one of our chefs, Aoud, you see her on the top right hand with the white hijab, the white veil. Now, if you would have told her 5 years ago that one day she would have found herself teaching a single man from Britain how to make wine leaf rolls, she probably would have slapped you. And now it's just happening. As we went on with our cookery school, we understood that we knew pretty little about the anthropology of food and about the history of the Nablus in food. But academic information are not so accessible for the local community. So we decided to become field researchers ourselves. We started with a group of women to travel in the surrounding villages, interviewing other women, cooking with them, collecting their stories related with food, and then bringing them back to the Women's Center, where we had those large gatherings, where I could see my microphone, my recorder, moving from hand to hand, and I realized that actually women were interviewing each other. They were collecting knowledge and sharing it at once. We also ask ourselves, where is the food coming from? We wanted to keep, of course, we wanted to use only locally produced material. So we started to look at the old city and the food producers of the old city. And we understood that actually there was a very deep awareness about food sovereignty in the old city. And we decided to design a culinary tour to have the opportunity, to give the opportunity for people to go and visit those places. So we can take you to the oldest spices shop in the old city, where the owner of the shop, he collects recipes of women, of mixes of spices, and he stores them in his little Bible. Or we will take you to the best tahini factory, where the owner, when he once tried to install a tahini factory in Jordan, he understood that actually what makes his tahini so special is the water of Nablus, his softness. Beit al-Karama is not so much about building a community. The community is already very connected. It is about taking time and space in a situation, in an ongoing state of emergency, to claim back cultural dignity. I've been asking myself, as a foreign artist, what the hell I'm doing here? Do I have the right to do this? And again, Fatima gave me a hint of the answer when she told me, Bea, you made me see what was always under my eyes. I simply couldn't see it. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Beatrice. Thank you for your presentation. So I was paying attention to what you were saying, and interesting that a traditional artwork, it's like you and I are the art, and then there's the people looking at the art, and it's for them. But you placed great emphasis on how your project keeps extending in the community, and you describe moments of transformation where people become teachers, the producers of the work. And can you tell me about, do you see your projects having two parts, like an effect on the people who are beginning to participate in the project versus the people who more traditional come to see the project? And do you think that they're the same kind of transformation for both sides of the project? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I'm interested in falling in those, viewer versus participator. I asked myself, is this project to be viable in an exhibition, in a museum? And I took the liberty to not do it.
All right.
That answer to the question?
Well, I was actually interested in the public that also comes to you.
I think that the public that comes to us, it's a public that gets immediately engaged in what we are doing. And I try to interfere the least as possible because I don't want to control the situation. We didn't want to shape perfect cookery teachers as we wanted women to be themselves, not to make them feel that they need to have, teaching skills. And they have been learning them actually by doing it. And the people that come to us, they do have an experience, but they are not the focus of the work.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get at, right? Because Paulo Freire talks a lot about that moment of emancipation where the student gets transformed into being...
In a way, our public is functional for the community to see themselves.
Right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.